Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Safe, Ethical, and Effective Next-Gen Artificial Intelligence for Physical Security webinar, brought to you by Scylla. And with us today, we have a distinguished member of the Scylla management team, and his name is Mr. Kris Greiner. He is the Vice President of Sales at North America at Scylla. And I am your host today. My name is Dr. Anthony Rhem. I am CEO of Rhem Associates. We are a consulting, training, and research organization in the areas of knowledge management and artificial intelligence. So I'm happy to be able to come to you today and speak to Kris. And let's get going. Okay, so I will let Kris dive into more of his role at Scylla and tell you more about Scylla as an organization. All right, go ahead, Kris.
Yeah, thank you, Tony, and welcome everybody to our discussion. Scylla, just to tell you a little bit about Scylla, who we are, we're a software company. We develop AI-powered video analytics. And we've trained our AI to specifically watch for physical threats. So we can monitor video streams of existing cameras that are already installed. We can monitor those in real time, for real-time alerts. We can look for objects, actions, and behavior anomalies. And again, all of those are trained towards physical threats. So that allows us to identify in real time things like guns, knives, fights, intruders. And when we see that threat, we trigger a real-time alert and notify the human operator or the person that they want, security, police, whoever that may be, to either take action or ignore that action, or at that point it's their decision.
All right, fantastic. At Scylla, we know also that they go across several industries, right? So was retail, industry safety, healthcare, hospital security, school security, security at athletic venues, sports arenas. They run the gambit of highly sophisticated artificial intelligence infused security for threat protection, as Kris had mentioned. And other things Kris just touched on, we can look at here is what Scylla's focus is also on object detection, like he had talked about, thermal screening, facial recognition, which is huge in the security area, object tracking, like he said, from weapons, different weapons and knives. And one thing that really stood out for me is the ability to look at behavioral type of threats and to analyze that. Scylla really has the type of technology that really dives into those types of understanding of those type of threats. So, and also it's able to leverage drones as well, and it's in a security approach. So very exciting. In this, to give you guys also a broader perspective of what Scylla brings to the table, this is some of the industries in which, and selected customers in which they have worked at. One company and organization that stands out for me is the Chicago Cubs, being a Chicago native. You can see that Scylla is really goes across many industries and to provide that security protection, which I think is an amazing opportunity there. So, what is safe, ethical, and effective next gen for AI and physical security? What are we really talking about? So, in order to do that, our special guest here, Kris, which he is alluded to earlier, giving you the background and understanding what Scylla does. We'll get into a few questions for Kris to give us that broad perspective and maybe take a little deeper dive into what Scylla does and how they manage to leverage sophisticated AI solutions in threat protection, in their threat protection solutions. So Kris, Question one, can you talk about the challenges of presenting to customers what Scylla does and how Scylla can protect their organization?
Probably the biggest challenge that we have is getting a busy security professional to give us that first 10 minutes, right? Because a lot of these guys, they're busy, they're doing what they do, they're getting called by a lot of different organizations, a lot of different vendors. And so our biggest challenge is, can you give us 10 minutes? And if the call lasts longer than 10 minutes, it's because they ask it to. They're the ones that ask. And almost every one of our calls, once we explain that initial value proposition and what Scylla is capable of and the value that we can bring to the organization and make their employees, their customers, everybody, their students more safe, then you can just see the excitement grow. And just learning about what is possible today that wasn't possible even, just a couple of years ago. Right. So, just getting somebody to give it, get that initial, have an open mind for that first 10 minutes. And then that's the biggest challenge, is to get people that message about what is possible today that wasn't not too long ago.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. But the other questions we're going to dive a little more into this. You get companies to give you that 10 minutes, and they're intrigued. You have them understanding that this is something that they need. What makes Scylla stand out apart from its competitors that really enables your potential customers and your customers to go beyond that first 10 minutes and to get a little more detail for what Scylla can offer?
Well, the fact that Scylla is specifically trained our AI for physical threat detection. So, we have a very powerful algorithm. We call it Sharon, which is a deep learning neural network. And we could train that to watch for literally anything, but we've trained it using data sets to watch specifically for physical threats, whether that's that gun, whether that's a fight, whether that's, abnormal shopping behavior, if that is, that object, that action, that behavior anomaly. So the fact that, there's basically 4 different types of video analytics out there, right? There's the old fashioned video motion detection that most people just turn off because it gets annoying. Every spider, every cloud, everything, triggers a motion detection. Then there's a heuristic, which is event-based motion detection. Then there's the rules-based machine learning that a lot of people are actually calling AI and selling as their AI solutions. But Scylla uses a deep learning neural network, and we use our algorithms based on data sets. That's a technology that's not possible on an embedded analytic inside a camera. Cameras can't run those. You need GPUs to run that, the deep neural networks. And, of course, besides, our technology that separates us from everybody, having the best AI on the market, of course, our people. And it's the people behind it. It's the people that create the technology. It's the people that support it. It's everybody in the Scylla organization is just top-notch person.
Fantastic. And yes, I also found that to be true to speaking to many of the Scylla management and technical people, just amazing individuals. You mentioned data, and you mentioned the sophistication of the AI solutions. So, getting to the theme of this webinar, what do you see is Scylla? Well, not what do you see, but what exactly is Scylla's position on delivering ethical AI solutions with their technology?
Well, like anything else with power, AI gives you power, and we have a very powerful AI. With that comes the responsibility to use those capabilities both wisely and ethically. So, we've consciously made training, product design, marketing decisions. All of those decisions ensure that our AI is used in accordance with Scylla's basic mission and ethics. And our core basic mission and ethics are, essentially we have four. We have that we've identified. We're free of gender and ethnic bias. We are we protect privacy. So we protect that end user privacy. We do not do ethnic identification. We will not train our AI to look for that. And because we're a software as a service and a subscription-based solution, we have we are providing those services to the end users. We will only sell our solution and our AI when it's used ethically, that meet Scylla's ethics.
Very good. That is exciting to hear. Just kind of adding to what you just mentioned, do you communicate what those expectations are to your potential clients as far as leveraging your applications, that you do follow some ethical policies, and is that communicated to your clients as well?
Absolutely. We have it posted on our website. So if you go to the contact us or about page, it'll identify each one of those and explain what we mean by that. For the free of gender and ethnic bias, a lot of data sets are trained for a lot of the facial recognition solutions that are on the market. They're trained by using just a specific data set of ethnicity, and it causes bias in the results. Well, Scylla is very careful to train our AI using a wide range, including a very large data set of basically white males. So we do not have the gender bias and ethnic bias that a lot of the solutions on the market have.
Right.
When we're protecting privacy, we don't log, store, record any information. We work with the existing solutions. Everybody has a security system in place, and those security systems just sit there, they quietly record, right? And they really, 99% of that video never gets viewed unless something bad happens. When that happens, that person, security goes back, they check the video footage, say, yep, this is the bad guy, this is what happened, and this is when it happened. But by then, the damage is already done. So Scylla, we're not trying to replace any of that existing infrastructure. We work with that infrastructure and add intelligence to it. So almost like sticking a Roku in a dumb TV, it makes it a smart TV. We stick a GPU-powered server. We monitor those video streams of that existing surveillance stream that's already in place, and in real time, that's when we watch for that object action and behavior anomaly. And we're not logging, storing, or recording anything. So if somebody wants to go back and retrieve footage, the customer, it would go back, it's sitting on their servers, on their storage, on their MVRs. We don't have any access to that. So privacy, we adhere to the California Consumer Privacy Act. We adhere to GDPR in Europe. So we have no issues with privacy. We don't do the ethnic identification. There's some other solutions on the market that were trained to, some other, specific Chinese brands were used to train to watch for specific ethnicities. I know there's some facial rec companies out of Israel that have been trained to watch for specific ethnicities. We won't do that. And so that's part of our core value statements.
All right, fantastic, and that's great for everyone that's tuning into the webinar to get that understanding and the transparency that Scylla has made as far as those policies are concerned. And the other thing I like that what Kris has brought up is the data sets, and as part of understanding the data that's used in the algorithm to train them, they go through a process of data cleansing and understanding what data they really need to leverage based on their policies as an organization to maintain that ethical standard. So that is one thing that really was impressive to me about Scylla, is that they they say what they do, and then they do what they say. And so that is earmark of a company that has high ethical standards. So that's great to hear. Thank you, Kris. In doing that, have you faced challenges in delivering ethical AI solutions? You talk about, which is fantastic. You talk about your policies, and they're visible on the site. You speak to your customers, they understand your position. But in understanding that, what challenges have you run into? Have you lost customers with that? Have customers really like the fact that you're transparent in your ethical standards? So what are some of the challenges that presented that maybe you can speak to around the ethical standards of AI that Scylla really pushes?
No, yeah, thanks for that, Tony. You're exactly right. There are challenges when you're trying to market, AI solutions, and a lot of that is just lack of education and fear on behalf of maybe the general public in general. We had a school system where the staff, the administration, superintendent signed on. They're super excited. They understood how it was going to save lives, how it was going to, detect active shooters, how we could, once we identify that active shooter, as he gets the gun out of his trunk in the parking lot and he starts walking to the front door, and Scylla identifies that active shooter, from a camera parking lot. Immediately we can lock onto that active shooter. We had, and we track him as he moves from camera to camera to camera throughout the campus. It's constantly given real-time updates to security or police, the superintendent, the resource officer, anyone they think should have that information. So when that guy, and at the same time, simultaneously, we're tying into the access control, we're locking that front door. And at the same time, we're tying into our partners, our unified messaging and crisis communication partners, and tying in and putting that school on lockdown, or potentially putting that school on lockdown if they're, if that's what the people in charge deem to do. So when that active shooter actually gets to the front door, he finds that it's locked, or the security, the staff, everybody has ample time and know that guy's coming towards them. So, right, these are the real value, life-saving solutions that we can bring to that school. But some of the people that don't understand that technology, they hear the word AI, and some of the parents in this specific district got scared. They thought we were going to be using AI to invade their children's privacy. Some of them even thought that we were going to be able to use their existing cameras and take, nude photos of their children. I mean, it was way out there in some of the things. So they got together, they protested at a school board meeting, and the superintendent and the school board got together and said, well, this really isn't worth the challenge to educate the people who don't want to learn. And they said that this is real sad because now our school is less safe because of it. So there are challenges in that manner. It comes down to educating people and understanding what the solutions can and can't do. AI is not magic. It can't do anything, but it's very powerful. It can do a lot of things. So setting that proper expectation, not only saying what a solution can do, but telling what it can't do is equally important. So those expectations are set, and people can use it as a valuable tool and use it responsibly.
Absolutely, and a valuable tool, and like you said, responsible and responsibly. And that's the thing about artificial intelligence, specifically in our case, machine learning, and all the aspects that Scylla Solutions bring to the table, is the ethical use of it. And Scylla really promotes the ethical use to make sure that their technology is used in a way that really aligns with your company mission, as you spoke to before. I know also that data is a key ingredient for the Scylla technology. Can you speak to a bit about what type of data you look for throughout the different types of Scylla solutions?
Well, when you're talking about data, are you asking about what kind of? Well, we have our own data sets, so we train our AI with our own data sets, which gives us another unique advantage because of accuracy in the marketplace. The data sets that we're training for: guns, knives, fights, intruders, bags left behind, suspicious behavior. If somebody's standing in an area, especially valuable for retail, right? You can't get in somebody's head and determine whether somebody's going to steal something or not. I might put something in my backpack while I'm shopping and take it to the front register, pull it out and pay for it. So you can't necessarily use just the fact that somebody stuck something in a bag as a shoplifting detection. But what we can do is we can watch for abnormal behavior while they are shopping. An example of that, if somebody's standing in front of laptops, for example, and the person is standing there, they look left, they look right, they look left again, like who's looking at me? And then all of a sudden they grab something and tuck it. Well, that's a little bit more of an indicator. So instead of calling something like shoplifting detection, we really should rename that and say suspicious behavior while shopping detection. So, so that would give security an alert. Security could access, tie in, they could access, they could watch that person who's acting differently than all of their other customers. And hopefully that helps them with their loss prevention. And hopefully that helps them keep eyes on somebody, so they're not going to go confront somebody, that doesn't need confronted, right?
Absolutely. The one thing that, among others, about Scylla and the AI solutions is the fact that you purposely keep the human in the loop. That's one of my things I like to point out for ethical AI, keeping the human in the loop. Tell us about how that is incorporated throughout your solutions. I know you mentioned having the client make the decision based on the data, but how is that facilitated with the Scylla solutions?
Well, when you're talking about human in the loop, that's going to be up to the customer if they want the human in the loop or not. Okay. That we don't require that. Our AI is incredibly accurate. I mean, exceeds the 99.99% right out of the box, for the different detections that we do. And because we are true machine learning, we get more accurate with time. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have detections that are not an actual weapon. And that is by design. So if you have an officer who is walking into a school and his weapon is holstered, we don't want to trigger an alert because, it's not a threat at that point. But what we do, we not only measure the degree of probability, we know that that weapon in that holster is a gun, but we are watching it. And we measure that in correlation. Our algorithm says we're going to measure that in correlation with the degree of aggressiveness. So even though we're watching that holstered weapon, we're not triggering the alert until somebody's hand touches that weapon. And once that officer's hand touches that weapon, that's when we're going to get excited, or somebody else's hand for that matter, or they're holding it in their hand. And, and that's when we get excited and start triggering the alerts. Another example of why we may want a human in the middle, or an organization may want somebody in the middle, is if they, you can have a lot of weapons that are disguised as guns. So let's say you have a rifle that is disguised as a walking cane. We don't want to trigger an alert every time we see a walking cane, but if somebody takes that cane up and they hold it up their shoulder in a prone for the shooting position, Scylla's looking at that and we say, okay, now something's suspicious here. We know that is not a gun. That is a walking cane, but that's a dangerous, suspicious behavior. So we will, based on that prone position or that aggressiveness of that holding of that cane, we will trigger an alert to go to a human and say, human, is this really a threat or not? Either take action on it or ignore it. And that human that we're sending it to it is not Scylla. We are not filtering all of those alerts, with a human. that alert is going to that school resource officer on site, because every second counts in this time.
Absolutely.
Every second counts. And it's going either to that resource officer, it's going to the police, it's going to the superintendent, it's going to the factory manager, whoever they say is in that security loop, or who they want. So it's the organization's human that's in the loop, not Scylla's human in the loop.
Absolutely. That's a great distinction to make. Absolutely. It's that organization that has to take the action, has to incorporate their policies into the Scylla solution. So I think it points out the flexibility and the direction the Scylla solution really provides for its clients, and for all potential clients that are listening to the webinar. That's a great point, and Kris has really outlined some outstanding benefits and things to think about when using threat protection software, especially in AI infused software. So let's. I got a few more questions. We talked about the challenges. We talked about the ethical nature of the applications and Scylla's position on that. Let's pivot a little and talk about what are some of the successful implementations of Scylla's technology, and really what made them successful.
All right. Well, that's easy. We have some notable names in different verticals that people would recognize that have allowed us to say that they use our technology. We have some non-disclosures with other customers where we'll keep everything 100% quiet. Then we have a lot of customers that nobody's, that are just small, that nobody's familiar with. Some of the ones that you've heard of, Major League Baseball, not only their headquarters in New York City, but also professional sports stadiums. And you mentioned the Cubs earlier, and so I'll use that as an example. The Cubs, you have a professional sports stadium, you have a lot of different challenges keeping everybody safe. So, everybody knows about the traditional metal detectors trying to find the concealed weapons, but if you have a motivated terrorist, they're going to avoid the concealed weapon detection. And, they're going to find a way to sneak something in. And so what we're doing is we watch for the gun detection. So every camera on the system goes out and actively looks and watches using their existing cameras. We watch for the guns. We can watch for the fights. We watch for, our solution, we can do person tracking. So at Wrigley, for example, if there's somebody that is deemed as a potential threat, but they haven't done anything wrong yet, we can, in real time, we can click on that person. We remember what they look like. The AI, and this is not using facial recognition. This is just using the physical attributes of what that person looks like. Just like your brain remembers what somebody looks like when your eye sees it, Scylla, as an AI, remembers what somebody looks like when the camera sees it. We'll say, okay, this is a white male with black hair and a white striped shirt, wearing blue jeans, and these wearing a backpack or a hat or whatever it may be. And so then once they identify that person, we take multiple real-time snapshots of what he looks like from multiple angles, from the front, the back, the side, as he's walking around. And then we go out and we tell every camera on the system to watch for this person. He's now a person of interest. And so then as he moves about that stadium and goes from camera to camera to camera, security constantly gets updates on his location. They know exactly where every potential threat is at any given time. So that's one use. And inversely, that same technology can be used for missing children. So Iowa State Fair, for example, we're securing the Iowa State Fair. And you have a missing child, not only the person of interest and threat tracking, and this is not using facial recognition, right? This is just using basic, what a person looks like, their image. So inversely, if you're looking for a missing child, that parent can send a photo of what their child looks like to security or police and put that into the system. Now, every camera in the system is out looking for them. It's adding hundreds of eyes, and we can go out and search crowds of thousands and thousands of people and watch for that person and help identify that missing child sooner than later. At the same time, we do slip and fall. So, let's go back to a stadium. You have a person that is walking down the stairs and slips and falls, and nobody knows about it. So, but the next thing you know, a year later, that organization gets a notice from an attorney. They're being sued because somebody fell in their place and they had no idea. But we can tell that organization in real time that somebody just slipped, and you better start documenting that incident report and make note of that. And it's going to protect that organization from future lawsuits. We can have cameras that are sitting out on the scoreboard that are monitoring the entire crowd and watching, tens or hundreds of thousands of people simultaneously. If the camera can see it, we can see it. And we can watch for a fight that breaks out in the crowd. And we're not talking about just people touching and pushing or whatever. We're talking about, fights. We know when there's a real fight, and we'll send security that update and tell them exactly where that fight is. And then we can set up all the cameras around them and show them exactly where that's going. And so that they have the alerts that are going to security that are responsible for just that section and not bothering people that are clear out in a different parking area, a different area of the stadium. So those are real use cases that are being used right now. And, I got another use case that intruder detection for a stadium. A particular stadium had an incident where, they're around bars and restaurants. They had somebody that they call their drunk Spider-Man. There was a guy in his 50s with flip-flops on. He scaled a wall. Nobody knows how he did that. Got inside, ran the bases, took selfies at home plate, broke into one of the stores, tried on some jerseys, and then before he left, wrote, "Your security sucks." But the thing is, the security did not suck. They have 700 cameras. They have 24/7 roaming security. They have a 24/7 operations center. But yet this guy, when they went back and checked the video footage, they realized that he was in there undetected for almost 3 hours, that none of that existing security picked up. So one of the first things we did was we turned on our intruder detection on all the perimeter cameras around the stadium. And now the second anybody gets in view of one of those cameras that is in a predetermined zone or time period, we send an immediate alert. The camera starts streaming live to the operations center. We start sending thumbnails out on our mobile apps to their roaming security, so they know exactly who and where and what they're going up against. So if they want to call the police instead of handling it themselves, they can do that. And it wasn't 3 days after we installed that intruder detection that somebody jumped the fence, a group of people. They were notified immediately. Security met them, and the people retreated. It did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Fantastic. Those are some great success stories and great use cases. And wow, this is very impressive. And thank you, Kris, for sharing that. So we took our time and walked through some very needed understanding of the technology, what it does, what it doesn't do, the ethical nature of it, the ethical use, the Scylla's policy around that, the transparency Scylla provides for the ethicality of their solutions is something that all organizations should model after. So just taking us through today's webinar, what do you see as the future of Scylla as an organization, and in particular, the technology that Scylla uses in this area of physical threat protection? What do you see as the future?
Well, Scylla will never stop innovating. We're always making our product better. It's always getting more accurate, just by nature of machine learning. The longer we're installed in an area, we learn from our mistakes, and we get more and more accurate with time. So where are we going? We're constantly taking feedback from our customers about what's important to them, from the real world people that are using this. And because we can train our system to watch for anything, if we get a feedback and it's going to make, an environment, a corporation, that stadium, that school, if it's going to make it more safe, we will add that to our suite of products and detections. So, in addition to constantly, we're always innovating. And so where are we going, right? We don't want to just identify things in real time. Our AI is so powerful, it's capable of learning and predicting. So we are currently moving towards predictive analytics. So we can stop or we can predict behavior with a certain degree of accuracy before it happens. And, an example would be, a terrorist outside of a sports arena. If somebody's coming up to that and they start acting funny or strange, or they, or maybe they're just casing the joint, for a future attack, we can get eyes on that person and identify that he is acting funny or different or, anomalous to how everybody else, normal people, would react. Right. And, those are things that we're working towards. We haven't released any of that yet, but it's coming. So right now we're focusing on the accuracy of our detections, because nobody wants a false detection, right? Nobody wants to see, watch for guns, and all of a sudden we're showing them pictures of a cell phone. That then people are going to, they're going to start ignoring it, and so that's what happens. And we want to make sure that our technology is so good and so powerful that, again, it's used for those ethical reasons, and we want to make sure that we are providing, technology to the private security industry that otherwise they wouldn't be able to afford. So we are providing this at reasonable rates. We don't want just governments to be able to afford this, this type of technology. We want it to be able to be accessible to, schools and houses of worship, and corporations, even small convenience stores or gas stations, right. Because these people can't afford these tools historically, but if we can put that in and save lives that way, then that's huge. We don't want to be in charge of, we don't want to decide who deserves to live and who doesn't based on what you can afford. So we make this affordable for the normal person, normal business, so that it's real time every day, and that's one of the things that we got to get out to people, is because most people just normally think, when you think of AI and security, you think of governments. You think of those as the only ones who can afford it, but we're putting these tools in the hands of normal everyday people, and it's going to be impactful and make a difference.
That is awesome. That is an awesome statement to leave everyone with, and understanding that this technology, it sounds so way out there, but Scylla has made it reachable to the regular guy, regular business owner. Maybe even someday at homes. When as far as that security is concerned too, it's refreshing to hear. Scylla is a young organization, very innovative. They continue to push the envelope, and I really like to thank Kris Greiner, VP of North America Sales, for taking us through this journey of Scylla, what Scylla brings to the table, the ethical nature of Scylla's solutions, and their ethical policies. So really appreciate you today doing that. And I know everyone that's will attend this webinar also will appreciate that. So let's think about some next steps. A couple of things that are happening at Scylla around ethical nature of AI solutions. I'm also writing an article on the ethical AI solutions in the threat protection industry, specifically focusing on Scylla. And in that article, I'm going to take a little deeper dive into what makes ethical AI possible, and what Scylla is doing to meet those challenges. And you've heard a lot of those details today from Kris. So look forward to that, for that article being published in social media and on various other sites as well. So thank you again. And this is information to contact both myself and Kris Greiner. And he can be reached at Scylla at inquiries@scylla.ai. I can be reached at through LinkedIn or through my email address as tonyr@ajrem.com. So thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you down the road as Scylla continues to evolve and keep everyone safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony.